Book tonight, Blackwater's shady dealings may go deeper than we thought. The New York Times is reporting that the Blackwater bribed Iraq government officials to keep quiet about the 17 innocent Iraqi civilians that their security guards killed in September 2007. Some of the company's top executives are said to have authorized $1 million worth of payoffs. That would be illegal under American law, but Blackwater kept its billion-dollar State Department security contract until this May. They may remain in Iraq on a $200 million aviation contract. And their guys are still allowed to be armed, okay? Well, let's bring in the nation's Jeremy Scahill. He's the author of Blackwater, The Rise of the World's Most Powerful Mercenary Army. Mr. Scahill, does Blackwater get off scot-free? What ramifications are to this report? What do you think the next step would be? What could happen?
Well, this is serious, Ed, in the sense that, Eric Prince, the owner of Blackwater, may go the way of Al Capone, where he's involved with all sorts of criminal activity, all sorts of killing, all sorts of graft and corruption, and maybe the charge that'll stick is one of obstructing justice or tampering with a federal investigation. This was a deadly serious incident where, as you said, 17 Iraqi civilians were killed. The Justice Department is prosecuting 5 Blackwater men. One already pled guilty, but the company has to date faced no consequences for its actions. Prince hasn't. If this is true, Ed, what this means is that Blackwater officials, not only Eric Prince knowing about it, but his top deputy, Gary Jackson, actually appeared to facilitate or attempt to facilitate the payment of bribes totaling perhaps $1 million to Iraqi officials. That's against federal law, not to mention the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, which explicitly bans bribing foreign officials.
Why are we still using them?
Well, I think that there's 2 reasons for it. One is that these companies, not just Blackwater, but the other 600 corporations that are now on the U.S. government payroll, have become sort of like the American Express card of U.S. military operations. They don't leave home without them. But there's another part of this that relates to Blackwater specifically, and that is, Ed, that this is a company that worked for the CIA on the al-Qaeda assassination program, is currently involved with covert operations in the drone campaign. Blackwater knows where a heck of a lot of bodies are buried, and I think that part of the problem here is that if you let these guys far off the ranch, they start talking, you have very powerful enemies. So I think that the Obama administration is making a huge mistake by continuing to use this company in particular, because they are essentially Christian crusaders in the terms of one of Eric Prince's former top deputies, but also because the damage that they reap on the rest of the world comes back to hurt the United States, both in terms of its image and in terms of blowback on U.S. soldiers.
Jeremy, do they protect U.S. dignitaries overseas?
Absolutely. Blackwater right now has $500 million in contracts in Afghanistan alone. When Hillary Clinton and Ambassador Holbrooke go to Afghanistan, Blackwater is part of their security detail. They are providing security for Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who actually has been an outspoken critic of Blackwater, which is incredibly painful and ironic.
So our military can't protect our own Secretary of State?
Well, you know that during the Clinton administration in the 90s, the United States began outsourcing what's called diplomatic security to these private companies, and now U.S. diplomatic activities in Iraq, Afghanistan, and elsewhere have become entirely dependent on these corporations that make a killing off of the killing. Ed, the military hasn't historically done the protection of these kinds of guards. They protected officials. They protected embassies, but this wasn't traditionally the military role. We've never had so many quote-unquote civilians deployed in a foreign war zone, so this is really a sort of product of the military-industrial complex.
So they've got a contract, and they're needed. They're in a good business.
Hey, Ed, if they can cut off Acorn's $53 million in funding over 15 years, how about cutting off Blackwater's $1 billion? Because I'll tell you this much, Ed, Blackwater's done a heck of a lot more to damage U.S. national security than Acorn ever could in 15 more years.